Well,
progression.
I told my girlfriend that I was going to be back on Developers After Dark, and she said, "Oh, you're going back on, Daddy?"
All right, everyone, welcome to Developers After Dark. We have a really, really special episode for everyone today because we're not only talking with people, but we're going to be talking about a particular thing in general here that everyone's going to want to either know about or know more about if you don't already know. But before we get into that and let everyone introduce themselves, what I'm going to do is do a couple of little bill pays real quick. And that is to make sure that everybody knows that the only website they're ever going to need to visit ever in their lifetime is going to be devsafterdarkpod.com. That's where you can see the back catalog of all of our episodes. You can see a little bit about what the show is about. And then you can watch any of the previous episodes. Even some of the people on our panel today have been on some of the previous episodes, and they can tell you how great it is, or if they don't, we can edit it out. Also, what you'll also need to do is the one thing you're definitely going to want to do if you want to know about anything going on. We just had last week, we just got done with the inbound conference for HubSpot, and you're going to see videos about things that were talked about there. You're going to see videos, pretty much you can go through. There are a couple of videos too about like recaps of what's going on during the month in the developer community. There are how-tos. There's a really good video, and it just came up actually in a conversation not too long ago about HS Doctor, the CLI command. There's a whole video explaining that. So there's a lot going on there in the HubSpot Developers YouTube channel, and that's at HubSpot Developers that you're going to go want to check out. It's not just us HubSpotters in there as well. There's videos from a lot of people from the community as well. So there's a lot of information there that you can kind of take in. You get lost for an entire day in there, honestly. So go check that when you have some time. And then if you want some instant updates, you're definitely going to want to subscribe to the changelog, and that's going to be developers.hubspot.com/changelog. One more time for Dennis, developers.hubspot.com/changelog. You'll not only find out what's going on now, but there's also an upcoming category as well in the changelog where you'll be able to see what's coming up in the near future. Last but not least, we always like to say, if you want to learn more, if you want to kind of upskill, up level, or whatever word you want to use, you're definitely going to want to go to academy.hubspot.com. There you're going to find quite a few courses and quite a few topics as well. Not just that too, but there's certifications that you can earn by taking some of the things on the Academy. I mean, you have things from social media marketing, SEO. There's a CMS for developers that's in there. I think there's a 1 and a 2 that you can do as well. And I always like to say, for those that are listening that aren't HubSpotters or those that are actually in the marketplace, you get that little badge that you can kind of brag on your listings when you complete some of these certification categories. So that's always a really, really cool thing as like a little added bonus as well. So, but go take a look at that when you have some time as well. But without further ado, everyone's wondering, why are we here and why is there 3 guests? Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the Elevate theme. If you haven't seen it already, when you're in the CMS and you go to create a page, there is a theme in there that you'll see that you say to yourself, well, I didn't download that. Well, no, you didn't. That's because it's there for you. And it's a great theme. And we're going to talk about the people who were instrumental in creating it. So without further ado, we can popcorn it around. Everybody, why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Sweet. I can start us off. So pardon me, is my camera going all glitchy? Is for anyone else? It's going pretty crazy. Yeah, it's going pretty well.
But
yeah.
Cool,
Why don't I popcorn in a second or just for a second? Let me just fix my camera real quick. I'll popcorn to you and I'll be right back as I try to fix that.
Cool.
Okay.
Sounds good, Brandon. Okay. Hi, everyone. We can edit a little bit of this out. Hey, everyone. I'm Sakura. I'm pronounced she, her. I am the designer on our lovely content assets team here at HubSpot. And yeah, I worked with all of our awesome team members to create Elevate last year. It's a huge thing, big hit, and yeah, just really excited to get to talk to y'all a little bit more about it today. I don't know if I should mention anything else about me, but but yeah, happy to popcorn it to BJ.
Yeah, thank you. I'm BJ. I'm still a senior software engineer at HubSpot. Yes. yeah, I don't know. I've been working on a lot of cool stuff that we can't talk about, but we can talk about else. So that's what we're going to chat about today.
I love it.
And sweet popcorn and back over to me, back to myself. Looks like my camera isn't going crazy anymore. So I'm Brandon. I've been at HubSpot for about 6 years. Been on Cat now for my majority of my time now, about 4 years on Cat doing stuff. Also working on some cool stuff that I probably can't talk about, but who knows? Maybe I'll slip up and let you know and you get a little sneak peek. We'll see what happens. Yeah, we're here to talk about Elevate, something that we did a lot of work on last year. Is a big initiative for everyone on Cat. So we're excited to let you know all about it best we can.
So now, let's start out with this. Like, I mean, I've seen it, I've used it, and it is awesome. And so thanks everyone for coming. And what was there a particular thing that like made Elevate become a thing that you guys started to work on? Because like, was there I guess like why did Elevate come about? Was there a particular thing in general where someone said like, we need to make Elevate to solve X?
Yeah. I can warm us up, and then I'll probably want to hand it over to Sakura. You did some research for someone else on our team last year, sort of about doing some research and stuff like that. Maybe you can give us a little insight into that. But I can at least start us off by saying that, like, before Elevate, all we had was growth, the growth theme. If anyone's familiar with the growth theme, like, it's a serviceable theme, but in 2025, 2024, it's looking pretty old. It's looking really old. It's looking a little bedraggled even. The word growth, I think, is supposed to indicate like I'm going to grow my business, but now it kind of looks like a growth that you might have on your body. Like doesn't look good. You know what I mean? It doesn't look good. It's not fun to use. It's frustrating to work with. It gets the job done. Like you can build your website on it, and there's people who've done some pretty cool things with growth. They probably have some developers on their side helping them out to do it, but it is not a fun to use. If you're a marketer and you're like, oh, I'm going to build my theme, you pick growth. You're like, okay, I want to style this. You get lost in the literal sauce of settings, theme settings, model settings. Just like, where is my onions? You can't find your ingredients. So you're trying to find it and you're having a really hard time. So that's where we kind of were. And so the questions are had like, well, what can we do better? Because look at the marketplace. The marketplace, it's like churning all these beautiful themes left and right. And that's what people are using. So like we were seeing that like growth isn't having a lot of traffic, and all these marketplace themes, like, oh wow, they're just like, that's where people are going to. They go to like create a new page and they see growth. They say, well, let me check the marketplace. Oh, look at all these. Look at these dozens of themes that look way better than whatever that was, and they'll just like, they won't even use it. So growth, the growth was really wasn't getting a lot of traction. It was kind of difficult to use. And really needed. So we really want to sort of like bring ourselves at least into the 20th century with a new theme. Which sort of led to sort of discussions about, yeah, maybe we can do something with Elevate. Fun backstory of growth theme is that the growth theme, when it was built, like I think there was just, I wasn't there. So like, I'm trying to use my memories on like what was there, but there wasn't, before the growth theme, there was maybe like the boilerplate, or there was something really simple that was used. So they were asked, like the Cat team at the time was asked to make a theme, and they like made the growth theme at like the same amount of time it took to make JavaScript, like 10 days. It was just like, there was no designer, and they just like made the growth theme like in like a couple of months with no designer. So they were doing their best to like kind of get this theme out the door. But again, it didn't really have that sort of like designer's mindset going into it, which was Elevate, which we'll talk about a lot more later in this chat about like the sort of really strong design mindset that went into the creation of Elevate. Yeah, that's a little backstory at least on growth team and why we want to get Elevate.
For sure. And sorry, BJ.
Yeah, real quick before we get to the design, but like more backstory too, like not even so like growth got like cranked out, right? And then we also had like a bajillion other themes that were basically like iterations on growth, right? So we had like Barricade.
That's right.
I was gonna say I think there were at least 5 to 7 default. They were called like default themes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Barricade, Sprout, maybe.
Yeah.
I remember the names.
And they were geared towards like specific industries, right? But then like our team in particular got sandwiched with like trying to maintain like,
oh my gosh,
80 different themes at once. And, they were all kind of like growth, but like small, iterations on it. So like if, we realized that something was broken, we'd have to go and do it across like different channels.
Yeah,
which was horrible.
We didn't have Claude back then to help us. Claude, no problem. Yeah, we'll do that for 2 seconds, but we had to go in there each file, right? Yeah, right, BJ, 100%.
Where did
yeah.
the
The maintenance
was there
part.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Nick. Yeah, I was just chiming into what BJ was saying. Like the maintenance part was huge, and also to Brandon's point, like just a lot of the like experience, like debt that growth had created. So a lot of it was really about like making improving activation for our like free and starter business builders who just really needed to launch like these professional and great looking sites pretty quickly, and they lack like the time and design resources to do that. So all that's to say, like, we really wanted to come out of the box with like a really modern, stunning theme that also like made like setting up of like a theme and like the maintenance of that like a lot easier. And yeah, just improve drop off. I think it was taking users a long time to publish content with growth theme too, and now we've kind of taken a look at how quickly they're able to get set up with Elevate. But yeah,
and something that I think is really important to like set before we like really get into the meat and potatoes is that I think a lot of people might be envisioning design as just like a what you see is what you get. It's just like the aesthetic appearance of like the site. And I think that something that is really apparent once you start like building is that there's this whole other aspect of design, right? That's like user interface, right? And on HubSpot, when you're building a theme, you're not only building the like end product of what is turned into a website, right? But you're also building a marketing interface. And like that interface has to be well thought out and well designed. And I think when it comes to like growth and barricade and these other themes that were, they were like the pioneers of like what themes are, right? So like HubSpot was like, we got this new thing where layouts are old news, like we're on themes now. And the team had to crank out a theme, and they were just shooting in the dark in terms of like, well, this is what we think makes sense at the time. And I think after a couple of years of trials and tribulations, we've kind of figured out what we think makes like a good theme, both from a physical design standpoint and from a UI UX marketing design standpoint. And Sakura has been a huge help when it comes to all of that stuff, so we're super stoked that she was able to join the team.
So you're saying we're not going to go back to the old like one-to-one template to page that we had like way back in the day?
Absolutely not. Never again.
I love it too, because as someone who reviews the theme, so the marketplace, like the principles and practices are the exact things I want the providers to do as well, as far as like layout, as far as like organization and things like that. So it's hugely, hugely appreciated, at least personally. But I want to start off by talking about the design. But before we do that, I do have one question. It's the name Elevate? Who came up with that? Was that a group thing, or did someone just because I was curious where those came from, like Barricade and all those other ones? I had always seen them, but I never knew like where the names originated from.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the other names came from, but at least for Elevate, for a long time we were calling it the new default theme. But yes, we needed a real name.
Have a ring to it.
It doesn't have that ring to it, exactly.
But then the next one would become the new default.
New default,
right?
new default V2.
Yeah.
So it's going to end up being like final.jpg.
Yeah. Underscore final.
But yeah, we had actually like crowdsourced the name, like with like a few other options. I think we had like Thrive up there, like Amplify, Rise, Forge, and like some other Jason Rosa and Cat's experimental code garden. And expansion. But I think like, yeah, we kind of took a poll in Content Hub Nexus, and of the folks who voted, it seemed like Elevate came out kind of victorious. And I don't know, I'm curious what Brandon and BJ think, but like in retrospect, it kind of seems fitting, because we were really trying to elevate like the design of the assets and how folks were like managing themes, especially our out of the box theme, and then take that to the next level. So it was kind of like a natural evolution from growth to like elevate. I don't know. growing,
Yeah,
elevating
I
your
agree.
business. Who knows?
I agree. I remember going through the process where everyone's like just kind of tossing out names until Upwake, and a lot of them had to do with like going up. We had like ascent and rise. Like it was all about like, you're trying to grow. We had growth, which again, they when I give the users like you're trying to grow your business, and elevate. I think it really evokes that. Like, what am I? I'm elevating my business with this tool. So it just has that good. It has that that positive feeling. I will admit though, I did like blurple theme. Blurple sounds cool. Sounds fun. Like I want to use the blurple theme. You know what I mean? And that's one of the colors that Elevate uses. So I figured they were getting called the blurple theme for a bit too. But anyways, yeah, I think that we crowdsourced it amongst each other, and I think we kind of narrowed it down to one that sounded really good. And Elevate was it.
Little insider baseball. I'm glad everyone got the theme done at the time they did, because, and I'm not going to mention the provider because it doesn't matter at this point, but someone had actually submitted a theme for the marketplace to get reviewed called Elevate. I was like, and at first I think your team hadn't finished it yet, but I knew of it. So I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't, I'm like, that's not that one. I'm like, what's going on here? So I was like, yeah, no, sorry, you can't do that. And it's like, I couldn't tell them why. And I'm just like, that's a restricted, like inbound, it's a restricted name. And they didn't question it, but it was like, the timing was like really close. Cause yeah, they almost edged out on that one. And I would have had to have been like, you kind of got to change that name. Sorry. But no, it was funny because I saw that and I was like, wait a minute, that's not us. What is going on? And I literally just froze for a second, but, let's jump right into the design, because I am a huge fan of design. I started as a designer, a web designer, if that's what they called it at the time, and then moved into like coding slightly. So I have a really huge love for it. So I'm just curious, like especially just to start out, like the color palette, like was there what was the mindset behind that decision making for the color palette?
Well, it's a good question, Nick. Also, love to hear that you sort of made your way into like engineering from design and the code side. But yeah, with Elevate, the color palette was, I don't know, you'll probably hear the term blurple a lot, but it was kind of meant to be like this hybrid of like a universal and like a safe classic fave blue. I feel like that's always kind of like talked about as like a safe and like classic color to use, and a lot of kind of evokes like a feeling of calm and like peace and things like that, because different colors hold different meanings, especially like across cultures and things like that. And then also like a combination of blue with purple. So like a lot of cases, I feel like maybe this is a personal preference thing, but I think the purple has been kind of emerging as like a new blue in some ways too. And so it kind of just like adds a little something different, like excitement and energy to the palette. We also did a little bit of looked into some metrics around like some of our most common industries for HubSpot customers, and digital marketing and advertising and like SaaS and like information technology tech was like pretty high in terms of like numbers of customers across that industry. And so like a bluish purple seems pretty fitting and like a safe kind of color for like the tech SaaS space. And a lot of brands and products use like blurple. Like you'll probably see Stripes has like a flavor of the blurple color. Discord has their own flavor of like a bluish purple. WorkOS, AppQs. So you want to like SaaS techy businesses out there. And we really wanted to pick something that could help keep things clean and modern and timeless and all of that without getting too bland or dated quickly. So I was like, oh, are we gonna get sick of this in like a year or two? Hopefully not another new theme. But just kind of something that would kind of withstand time a little bit and provide that solid direction.
I love something you just touched on, and it's something that I don't often hear a lot of people think about unless they come from like an international type brand or like have worked with it, is the color theory and the way that the colors are represented in multiple countries and multiple things. I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration as much, especially if they're just building like one-off sites for like a local business in my area, things like that. But there's a big thing to that, right? Like certain colors in certain like areas of the world are danger, or when it's not danger in another country. Same with words and verbiage. So it's like you have to keep these all top of mind. So I love hearing that was actually part of it, was like, well, what about internationally when we talk about colors? What's that going to look like? Like that is fantastic to hear that in the back end, that was all stuff that was thought about.
Yeah, that's a good point, AJ, because like colors like red, could symbolize danger in a lot of like UI context, but it's also good fortune in like Asia. It can also like be like, it's often used in the food industry too, because like apparently there's a correlation between like being hungry, like McDonald's. Yeah, you'll see McDonald's using like for their brand a lot of like yellows and reds.
Okay, interesting.
And then with greens and things, it's like tricky because a lot of that is like nature or like environmental. So like just trying to take all of that into kind of account. And there are also a bunch of accessibility concerns with colors like yellow and orange. Those are really hard colors. So if I kind of left us with blue and purple a little bit, or like like a more neutral kind of like black and white or something like that, but thought the blurple would give some more personality to like our assets.
Were there any type of like challenges that you were looking to solve with like
Nick?
With design and UI, with creating some of the stuff? Because I know there's things like, and I've in that kind of like questionnaire that we kind of we were throwing ideas, and there are some things about Elevate that I am just thrilled about from like a UI perspective and from a design perspective, that I've actually seen like template providers start to incorporate themselves in their own themes that they've submitted to the marketplace. So were there specific challenges there that you were looking to solve with respect to like this kind of upgrade?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm curious. I'm sure like BJ and Brandon have thoughts too, but something that we were really like focused on was like, of course, like updating the outdated design, because growth did look pretty dated pretty quick. And then also like the Cumbers and theme settings UX. So we provided like hundreds of like, different settings. And a lot of that was like super overwhelming, especially for like small businesses who just don't really have time to get like super nitty gritty right away. And they just want to get up and running really quick. And also like in the past, like with growth theme, we would provide like a lot of like module level overrides, which often would contribute to like breaking patterns, and kind of like making it harder to keep things like consistent in the overall design. So, with growth, people were already starting off in a tough place, and it was like really easy to make things look real bad, real fast. With Elevate, we were.
Oh, it's frozen.
No.
I thought it was.
She's frozen. I think we lost it.
I thought it was me. I just like last episode, my camera just died like halfway in the middle.
I was just saying it. She was just asking a second ago.
That's going to be what I use at the beginning. It's just.
Are you really going to do that? Is that what you're going to do to me? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Good thing we're editing. See if she pops back on. But yeah.
Well, that being said, I have a special surprise. I don't have yet, but I will. I will be going my camera off for a little bit in like 15 minutes, and then I have a.
Oh, you're gonna cook something up for us? Okay.
Yeah, building it up.
Okay. I like that. Okay.
Not this is gonna be. This is gonna be hell on earth for AJ to edit. I love this.
Why this week, Dennis?
No. Right. That is Dennis picks a sabbatical month. That it's just like, my camera's dying. All hell's breaking loose. I love this. This is good. This is the way it should be, though. And I mean, honestly, if this was live, I wouldn't even really care, because I think this is what makes it fantastic. But no, we can come back to the.
I can follow up on that question if you want.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
I can follow up a little bit on there, because you're talking about like some of the challenges that we had to face when we were like sort of building out the design. And I know BJ, we had a lot of back and forth. We had a lot of back and forth in this, and the word we'll use here is inheritance. I think we had so much discussion around like how are we going to handle this and Elevate, and obviously there's a lot of different ways to do it, because like the growth theme was an inheritance nightmare. I mean, it was one of the biggest reasons one of the things that caused so many people issues. It's like, I set this button color to be red and it's orange here. Why is it orange here? And it's because button setting has orange here, but the theme setting had buttons orange, and they're just not. They weren't interacting the proper way. And so one of the big challenges for Sakura and for like from the developer side was like, how can we reduce the burden of inheritance? We still need to have some of it to some degree, but like right now it's a bubbling down so far, and then things are getting conflicted with module style fields. I mean, so the issue was I said at the top is like, modules had a ton of style fields, and then theme settings had every field. What happened? Hello?
Is Brandon still talking?
I'm here. Yeah. You can see me?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. My internet must also be going.
It might be StreamYard. I don't know. I think
Brandon's
it might be
a black box online.
No,
Everyone else is fine.
You can
Okay.
you can't hear me, BJ?
I won't talk. Keep going, Brandon.
BJ. BJ's loading in. So love BJ loading. Yeah. So yeah, Sakura, we picked up from the off. We talked about one of our favorite topics, which was inheritance of the different colors.
Crazy topics.
So yeah, we had a ton of back and forth because like with the Elevate theme, the Elevate has its core color set, right? Here's the core colors, and how do we share those core colors now with like all of the different theme settings for forms, for buttons, for cards? How do we share those down without creating some crazy conflict where someone's like edited their card colors? And now is it broken now from the sort of like the main colors that we set up, and how is that interaction supposed to work for the user? How are they supposed to understand that? And I feel like we ended up coming to a solid solution. We are trying to reduce the number of settings. For A, we're trying to reduce the number of settings, and B, we want to handle inheritance. And those two problems were like at conflict with each other because like you have to have more settings if you want to reduce like we need more settings to reduce inheritance, because inheritance allows you to sort of like, oh, I can have less settings because it's just going to inherit from sort of like the parent of the main color palette, so it's going to inherit that way. But when you do that, you have this sort of the implicit connection that like might make it harder for the users to edit like individual. I want to edit these cards to be like all like this. So I know my 5 main colors this, but I want the card to be this, and sort of like making sure we can get that relationship to be correct, to be proper, and also intuitive for the user to understand. Right? They look at their main color palette. I see the colors. I go to my card. I see that it's inheriting initially from those colors. Now I can change it how I want. And I still have my palette accessible, but I have my custom cut edits here for this particular use case. And that feels usable with Elevate. Whereas before in the growth theme, a user would edit some theme settings and go into the button and then not be able to control it as they expected. Because like module, either the theme settings were overriding what was happening in the module or vice versa. You know what I mean? So it was causing some conflicts of understanding. Eventually, like a lot of users, when we're talking about the growth, like they got sort of like the nuances. They sort of like taught themselves how to work within the system, and so they could do it. They could do whatever they need to do to make happen. But yeah, a new user coming to growth, they are lost within the first 15-20 minutes, and they're just done. They're like, I can't even create the most basic website here. I'm going to go the marketplace. I'm going to go to a different platform completely. Because a lot of people, so I'm kind of going off right now, is like a lot of people, like they have access to internet. They know Squarespace exists. They know Wix exists. And they're like, right, what is this HubSpot thing over here? That like,
it's a hard balance.
I see these great sources. And then I go to HubSpot, which I like being here. It's my CRM. It has all my data. But man, this website experience really doesn't feel great. And that is a big pain point for users, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a hard balance to try to, as far as like when it comes to theme settings and modular settings, as far, overriding each other or inheriting from each other. Like I see that a lot with some of the themes that are submitted, right? When you're trying to review them for like just accuracy to make sure that their settings actually do what they're intended to do, right? And aren't broken. And you do see a lot of that where the suggestions that I make constantly to them are, a user might want to change this. You kind of have them locked into this. And I'm like, this would drive me. I tell them this would drive me crazy. I'm like, you can't really lock them into this. So no, it's kind of echoing off of AJ's sentiment. I'm really glad that was something that was, another thing that was in the forefront as far as like considerations for this.
Yeah. Another highlight from one of the challenges, and I think one of our PS responses for Elevate theme was section colors, section backgrounds and section colors, because that allowed us to always provide the proper contrast. I mean, because like it was possible with other things. So initially, the first initial designs of theme settings for text was like heading has text, headings have text, paragraph has text. Like there was a bunch of different text settings, and we realized that like a user might set up a background to be black, but all their text settings are black, and now it doesn't work anywhere. It's all broken everywhere, and so. We brought up the idea of section, like how about section settings, like for backgrounds and for fonts? And we're like, we're going to add like 25 more settings. Like we're trying to reduce settings. We're going to add so many new settings to support this. But adding it solves so many problems for us. Okay, cool. We can have like, now we have 4 different settings you can choose from. I want section variant 1, which has this background and this text. And that's amazing for the user. I can always get a proper visible text with the right background in all these different places. I can swap between these 4 throughout my page, which makes the user feel like they have a lot of options for background and text colors. And it's very clear how these colors are going to work. So I feel like that was an interesting problem for us, because while we're in the midst of trying to reduce settings, like one of the big issues grow so many settings. And now we are faced with, okay, cool. We want to solve this problem of contrast. And to do it, we can add 25 like settings to do it. And I feel a little bad, but we added it and like, oh wow, now things are making sense. So it was realizing that like, okay, settings aren't necessarily always the wrong choice. And in this case, it was the right choice to add more. at that point, because it was later on in the development. I mean, that section colors and for the text and backgrounds, that didn't come at the beginning. Like we just had like headings and paragraphs. They have their own individual color settings. Backgrounds have their own situation. There was no section background colors actually initially. So actually come to that conclusion was a big win for making Elevate work the way
that's another thing theme providers in the marketplace do that constantly. I'm having to I'm like, I'm sorry, this white font on the white background is going to be really, really hard to read. And I was like, you might want to try to. But I one of the things I wanted to just kind of get some input from the team on is one of the things that I loved when I was kind of just going through the settings was just the border radius. Like I was in love with the fact that it was kind of structured as a 3 setting choice, where as opposed to because no one ever knows the right pixel number to put in for yeah. And the fact that it was that to me from an end user's perspective, I was like, that was gold. Was there and this kind of leads into a different question as well, but was there kind of a list of common things done wrong that people do, or common problems people have that kind of led to some of those enhancements?
I kind of think that aside from things that we realized with growth, I was coming from the developer side of the window for a long time. So I kind of came in with a whole bunch of opinions. And I think something that was interesting, and I feel like it was a process that we used, quite a bit last year, in particular, whether or not it was related to just default assets or Elevate in general, was that a lot of times we disagree. A lot of times, people on our team are not all on the same team. We're all on the same team.
On the same page. We're not all agreeing on the same path forward. Yeah.
But a lot of times we have our own opinions, and the path that I chose for a long time was actually not the path that we took for Elevate. And the path that I was kind of coming from on the developer side, which I think is actually a very common pitfall for developers, is that they favor flexibility, right? So when I was building themes back before I was at HubSpot, I advocated heavily for I just want themes and modules that can do everything, right? Because then I don't have to do developer-y things. I just know how it's built. I can come in, change some settings. But the downside of that, especially when it comes to the module design, is that, when it comes to building out a page, you got to click 10 times to get, something that you want to set up, right? And it might be structured very well. You might have a cool variant section, with, whatever settings you might imagine for whatever module you're building. But the reality is that it's going to take a marketer, 10 clicks if it's not, the base configuration for whatever they're looking for. And that is a really interesting problem to solve. And I don't know if we kind of spoke about it yet while my computer was wigging out, but it's very much tied to this, right? Is that theme settings as a whole are really, really actually connected to module settings. Because if you do theme settings right, which I feel like is something that we did in Elevate, you can then flow those things through to your modules, so that if you spend, you're essentially front loading all of your effort into creating settings, you're front loading all that to the beginning of the project. So that, we're setting, what brand colors we have, what typefaces are we using, what's our light dark background, how do our cards look on those things. But now when you do the thing that, you're doing every day, which is building your websites, you're no longer needing to select all of the colors and then be are these saved colors the ones that are my brand colors, or are these off? Why is this one here? That one looks a little bit wrong. It's just a choice field that says, do you want card A, B, C, or D? However.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's it's always connected. So you go back to theme settings, you're I want to change what card C looks like, and it applies across the board.
Right. That was always a when it came to variations, that was always a problem that the a lot of providers, like module providers and theme providers as well. I mean, because they're essentially one and the same. But there was always this sort of, well, I'm gonna create this thing, but I'm gonna give them a drop down with 47 variations, and I'm like, and in certain, like, and I'm just making up an arbitrary number, but there were some that had a lot. There were some that you would think like you could do this, and don't submit 3 modules. I mean, you could do this by making this a variation because it wasn't too crazy, right? As far as like what was being changed, but it was trying to help providers find that balance, I think was always the hardest thing, because you don't want to tell them no, because you don't want to tell somebody how to develop something. It's like, I'm not here to tell you how to code. I'm just here that you follow rule X, Y, and Z to get in the marketplace. But at a certain point, you're like, okay, if you have 50 variations in a dropdown, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at a certain point, right? So no, I think I don't envy having to solve that problem. But I mean, with the way Elevate works, whether it looks like you did, it really does. Whether you think you did or not, there is that type of, like, I always call it choice paralysis, but I don't get that, at all. So
that was one of the big like focus talking points for us as a team, was like, how do we really, like, like Sakura, I think, was saying earlier, like, growth has a bajillion different settings and like they can be edited everywhere.
Right.
And part of our whole thought process was like, how can we make, this as simple and smooth as possible while still kind of towing that line between like opinionated flexibility and like ease for a marketer. So you can still change a lot. However, we're like intentionally gating certain things so that we can't break them. And then, that's just kind of how it works. And I think the end product, is something that I think a lot of people should really like take into consideration with their custom themes, is like, be opinionated, like have an opinionated product. And like, you think that creating something that's like uber flexible is good for everybody, but I think for your average person, it's not. It's good for the people who like know how to use everything. But I think at the end of the day, people just want to click, drag, click maybe one more time, and like, it's the way that they want it to be.
Yeah. And without putting any numbers on the table, I will say, like, we looking at it, like, Elevate has had so much traffic. It's been out we released it like October of last year, somewhere around there. It's been about a year out in the world, and it's doing well. Like, it's definitely performing like it wants to. It had a slow sort of onboarding for it. One thing that really helped was sort of AI. We got onto the AI onboarding, so users, like, they can create their website with AI. And then we'll use Elevate as sort of the source for it. So a lot of new users are coming in like, oh yeah, let me take my page with AI, and it uses Elevate as a source for that. So that was a huge like help for getting the traction for Elevate. But yeah, Elevate's been doing really well. Obviously, we're still doing a ton of work on Elevate. Elevate's getting a lot of traction. We're working on templates, working on sections, working on all kinds of other things. Can't say, I can't hold my tongue there. But so Elevate is definitely like a heavily developed theme. Like it's not like we made it, put out there, and like, okay, see you later. Thanks, Elevate. Good job. We're working on it. I mean, we're working on it like daily. So it's definitely it's getting a lot of traction, and we're still putting a lot of calories into it. So.
And now when you guys were building, sorry, Elevate, this isn't just standard HTML and Hubble, correct? You guys were using React, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, React. Yeah, so that's another fun fact about the Elevate development is Elevate is the first theme that is we'll call it a unified theme. Unified being we're unifying React and Hubble together in one. I wouldn't necessarily call it a beautiful marriage, but it's a marriage. It's working. The idea being that, like, there is some sort of I do think that and I think BJ kind of like attested, there's pain points with having this mixed experience and no design manager. Okay, we're talking like developers living in the design manager, doing everything in the design manager. People are Elevate, like, hey, where's Elevate? I can't see to the design manager. Like, you never will, and that's a big that hurts, right? Because like you have this whole development flow. You know what you're doing. Hey, we're this brand new theme. Drop what you do, download an IDE and get ready to code. You know what I mean? That hurts a little bit to have the unified theme experience. But anyways, yeah. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, I mean, right now the Elevate theme has React modules, but it has Hubble templates. But they work together. With Elevate.
Yeah, because that's we were just building, and we when we built the new developer site, we rely a lot on like the base code that you guys had done, and basically picked apart a lot of what you guys did in Elevate to basically bring that to the developer site that's up right now. So Thank you guys for building an awesome theme that I was able to.
So yeah, we have
I love it.
there's
two things.
Go ahead, go for it, BJ.
The cool thing, or like one of the other really cool things about React, ties back to that last point I was making about like kind of connecting dots between things. And that's, you know, one of the biggest pain points that I've experienced with building themes is like, how can I have, you know, like some kind of control and unification between like what shows up in fields as choices and like how those things are displayed in other places, or like how do I like tie options from theme settings to my modules. And with React, and I mean, just being able to use JavaScript in general, there's a lot of really cool ways now that you can, you know, tie, you know, certain constants, certain variables to certain like features and import them and export them around so that you have like single sources of truth. You know, some really cool things coming down the pipeline in a lot of different ways that are making use of a lot of like the really slick features of React, or that React brings to the table.
I'll say this. I mean, I came from, when I came to the Cat, I didn't really have any experience with like I had experience with HTML, but I never did with Hubble, and I never worked in a CMS before. I didn't have any experience. I had very like JavaScript app experience that came over here. And I will say, I don't love writing things in Hubble. It's not a fun time. It's obviously serviceable. It gets the job done, whatever. But like writing in JavaScript, like kind of having BJ saying, is like you have so much more control. I have a fully fledged programming language now that I can work with. Or like we have like Hubble has functions and filters. They do a pretty good job. They let you do a lot of things. But like being able to use JavaScript, again, we can even use JavaScript in fields. It allows us to like, again, we get code reuse. We have easy to read code. It's so much easier to follow for Hubble because like. We still have Hubble templates, so I'm sure you've read a Hubble template. Just scrolling through those. If you have a 1,000-line file, like where is my code? We're putting comments in Hubble files so you can highlight like, oh, this is where you're at. This is where you're at. Because it's just like a bracket. So you get bracket overload when you're looking at a big Hubble file. So yeah, so JavaScript really gives us so much more power over Hubble. It gives us the full power of programming language.
So. Yeah, I think what BJ mentioned about like the commonality stuff too is what's been beautiful about it is, you know, like all of our modules have the same fields that are being used in them. And we just have a helper and it literally, so the style fields, oh, here's your style group in the fields, just load this in. And it's like, I only ever have to update one file, but it trickles down to all of my modules when I update that file, which is, you know, years before I came to HubSpot, I worked as a HubSpot developer, and that was just unattainable at that time. And it was constant nightmare of, oh, all of our modules use the same text field. We're updating the text field to a text area. Okay, we're in every single module.
Let's replace all those. Hope it works out. Yeah.
Yep.
Let me ask this, and this might be a question for Sakura. I don't know specifically, and who knows? Maybe this was easy. Maybe there wasn't a hard decision to make, but. Was there a balance, and I'll explain why I'm asking this, but was there a hard balance between like the aesthetics being chosen and the UI, kind of like UX UI experience? Because there are plenty of, and the reason why I ask this is because there are plenty of themes in the marketplace that they try to do everything. Let's say the best way to put it is they're trying to do everything. There's, oh yeah, you're gonna love this page because it's an about page that has the slider, the accordion, the masonry grid, and I'm just like, I'm like, my friend, that is not going to work very well. I'm like, this is kind of like, this is a bit much. And it's like, there's always that like strive to try to do too many bells and whistles. Was there a lot? I have a follow-up question too, but was there a lot of struggle with that?
Oh, Nick, so glad you asked. Yes, a lot of struggles. Yes, like super hard. And it's great and also really like tricky question because like that balance is a really hard one to strike, especially when we were working on Elevate, because we really wanted to get like a good balance between like a design that was beautiful and sophisticated, but also at the same time like not overwhelming marketers with like or like more creative generalist type folks who are not like designers and developers, like with a bunch of like customization options and fields that they have to think about tweaking, sort of decision fatigue, like what pixel value should this border radius be? Like what colors should this be? Like every, all the nitty gritty stuff. So yeah, super hard questions for sure. And at times, like I was always kind of like I was trying to not be super balanced being a designer and kind of wanting to do, cool things with like gradients and stuff, and knowing that like we have to like support or find a way to like incorporate that customization for marketers in like an easy and opinionated and intuitive way. So yeah, really hard balance to strike, honestly. I'm glad you asked a question.
No, good. And I'm not laughing at the answer. I just noticed what's going on BJ's screen there, and I can't stop laughing.
BJ's screen? What do you mean?
I kept looking and I'm like, because on my my setup, it's over on my right screen and it's a little smaller, everybody. But like, I'm looking and I'm like, did he just put a wig on? Like, what did he just do? Like,
did he just shave completely? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, But it's nice to see you. Nice to see you. Very nice to see you.
Indeed.
No, that's the reason why I asked that question is because like a lot of developers try to, and it's not intentional, but they try to overdo it. And my follow-up question too is like, how annoying was it to have the ecosystem quality team asked to review your theme like it was a theme for the marketplace? Because I did that, and I believe I was Rever. I think I was you that I talked to, and I was like making I made a loom because I was just like, oh, a new theme. I was like, I'll just review it.
Yeah, I thought it's really helpful. Like I'm really curious like about like all the different things, because you guys have like a really good you have insight into like all the different themes that folks submit in the marketplace and kind of like challenges that theme developers and partners run into like when they're creating these themes. One thing that came to mind was like color, because I know that like had come up a lot in the past. I think Brandon, you were touching on it with sections, but like something that we've observed is like, and Growth did this too, and I imagine like other themes, like sort of tying in like primary brand color or secondary brand color with primary button styles, or like a main section background style, and not every brand's like primary brand color is going to work really well as like a UI element or like in a big surface area, if it's like a page background or something. So we really wanted to be like thoughtful about how we were thinking about colors. Love-hate relationship, they do so much at the same time. Like we were really trying to be thoughtful about how we were thinking about like the sort of core color palette and how that would like trickle down into like how those actually get applied like on UI elements.
There are many, many looms I had to make to show developers what their brand inheritance colors looked like when they inherited it into the theme. It was like, and I chose mine as magenta because it stuck out the most. So the minute I loaded a theme, I was like, okay, I can tell exactly where my colors are being inherited. I couldn't tell you even the amount of modules where it was just one big wall of magenta. Like it was just the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, let me explain. So we made a video and I think we took it down because I don't think we removed that as a requirement for a theme. Like a theme can do it in the marketplace, but it's not, we used to like specifically require it. We don't specifically require it, but I literally made a video just showing like, if you choose everything as your brand color, everything's going to be your brand color, like visually, because there was a lot of developers that said, well, I didn't have a brand kit set up in mine, so I didn't even realize that. So it was like there was a lot of trying to like take what you guys were inherently thinking about and kind of say, hey, developers, you should also be thinking this way as well because it makes an impact. So that's another reason why I'm just really I'm impressed, because Elevate is just it doesn't just tick off the boxes that are necessary, but the thought process that went behind it is exactly what like a lot of us internally who like work on themes or work like adjacent to themes kind of started to notice, especially with like, providers themes specifically, right? And your team thought that stuff through while making this. So it was kind of cool because it's like you didn't even have to ask. It was like they already know. I'm like, oh great, this is so cool. So very
Elevate adapts so well to different brand colors and everything. Anton thought that BJ needed to adapt to some different brand colors. So
This is from Anton. For BJ.
Wow. Special delivery from John. That's across the.
Oh wow.
Because he provided that wonderful new branding for BJ. I feel like I probably should call out just momentarily. No, not a sponsorship, just a shirt sponsorship.
We love it. We love it.
I'm gonna take off anyhow. As you can see, I am in full dad mode. I'm on parental leave, so I am going to be
Enjoy.
Very good seeing you.
I would spoil showing my daughter on screen. However, I like many things at HubSpot. She's under NDA, so.
We'll wait for the full reveal then.
That's so awesome. It's good to see you. And don't forget, John,
enjoy parental leave.
You're only a couple hours away from us, so I mean, like, I expect deliveries at my door too. I mean,
Yeah, for
you're
sure.
not that far.
Well,
Quite
it might
enough.
take a little longer. I'm not Amazon same day here.
That's fair. That's fair.
It took a whole week to get it to BJ, so.
That's awesome.
All right. Y'all have a great one.
Bye.
Later, John.
See ya.
That's awesome. I literally didn't know. I didn't even realize that was going on for like 5 minutes. I was like staring off onto my notes, and then I turned and looked, and I was like,
weren't noticing, and that's when I started laughing and be like, how long is it gonna take him to notice?
"No, I felt like a jerk too because you were answering the question, and I was following along, and I just was like, I honestly thought BJ put a wig on at first because like it's so small on my screen, the squares. I was like, what is he doing? I was like, that looks like John.
I will say that it was completely unplanned. I had messaged John earlier this week or last week during the inbound because Anton said that he had something for me and I wasn't at inbound. So I was like, oh, well, I'll see if John can drop it off. John had messaged me on Monday and then turned his notifications off and then just messaged me like right when we were starting. And I was like, well, you can drop it off, leave it at the door. Or I'm doing deadlift, I'm doing daddy. So if you want, feel free to like come on in and maybe you can just do like an impromptu hello. And
there you have it.
That is awesome. I love that. Let me ask a question because there was one, and we kind of answered it with the color palette choice, but was there any because like I know for me personally, and again, like I don't, the last thing I designed was probably the podcast website, and that was on the fly. The way I do it is not really traditional, but was there any sort of like, because I'm always fascinated with like inspirations in design itself, right? Because there's been plenty of times, and I don't even know if this site still exists, but there was like, you have your like CSS awards websites and things like that, where I would just be for like hours just scrolling through, just in awe of the really great design and usability and UI UX of other people's work. Was there any type of like, and it doesn't even have to come from other people's work too, like there's architecture, there's things out in the world and nature itself. Were there any particular inspirations that kind of helped drive the look and feel of Elevate?
That's a good question, Nick. Yeah, we looked at some of the things, like you're talking about the awards with like 3 W's.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a dribble, there are those types of places out there, which is awesome. We also ran a workshop initially for Elevate, where we asked like a bunch of participants on the team and across Content Hub teams to like put on their like S&B hats and just imagine they're like a small business owner, for a particular industry, a company in a particular industry, looking for a new website theme, and then like make some notes as to like what, find a theme that they really liked out there, make notes as to like why they chose that theme. And then we kind of had folks vote on like the top 4 favorites. And so we kind of took a little bit more of a process-based approach too, to like coming up with the look and feel for Elevate. Did a bit of affinity mapping to kind of synthesize and group like some of those like high level takeaways. Like there were a bunch of themes, like no pun intended, and like insights about like just how people were going about choosing like a theme for their fictitious business. Yeah. And just choosing that theme. So we kind of took like those like insights and kind of came up with like high level takeaways for like typography and color and like interactions and imagery too, like, you know, pictograms, like a lot of the images we have in Elevator, like kind of custom design, and a lot of them are SVGs. So we can do some cool like color magic with them too.
Nice.
And explore more on that front down the line. So it's really hard for businesses like finding like free like SVG, you know, quality SVGs. And yeah, a lot of that we worked on, you know, things with like spacing and stuff. So that kind of helped ground a lot of that visual design side of the like the design work, the UX work, and yeah, like helped us create sort of that look and feel that you see today.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. Is there just kind of overall, are there particular things, because there's other things too that I've noticed in Elevate, and I'm going to steal an answer, hopefully not one that somebody wants to throw out there, but like in the theme settings, the iconography or the icons essentially, like in the theme settings, like in the groupings, I think I feel like it adds something to it, because like just from the UI perspective, like there's a lot of, depending on, you know, which theme you look at and depending on your opinion, there could be a lot of settings, right? There's a good adequate amount. I like the way the icons kind of break up the monotony of things as far as the groupings, like the field groups. I've seen other providers just recently do the same thing in their themes, and I was just like, I've even commented, I was like, love what you're doing with the icons. You know, we do the same thing now, you know, with our themes. Are there other things that you, because I want to make sure like anyone that listens to this or watches this is able to, I want to be able to put across like some of the really, really cool things that Elevate now does that, you know, a user may not be aware of. Because I mean, maybe they've used a free one in the marketplace and things like that, which, you know, might suit some needs, but like there's things that Elevate does now. You know, are there any other things? Because I want to make sure like I want to cover them all, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to cover them all. I feel like you touched on a good one, like so that we introduced those icons like in the main theme settings, like main panel page. And a lot of that was kind of meant to just help, you know, like if the marketer is running through like different settings, like they're like more easily able to tell like what a group of fields might do. Like, you know, you see a picture of a typeface, like, oh, maybe like that has something to do with fonts, or, you know, working with typography for the theme. You know, paintbrush maybe for colors or something like that. So I think it's powerful to have that like icon plus text pairing. Sometimes it's hard to gauge just by text alone or just with a label. We leaned a lot into like, I'm curious what BJ and like Brandon also think, but other cool things were like, we leaned into like visual choice fields a lot for like those border, out of box border radiuses, like for shape and stuff. And just trying to get more visual with a lot of the like fields too, can really help versus like just selects or like input fields or, you know, things like that. So just having a visual representation of like what a setting might look like on an element has been really helpful. And then we worked with the themes and modules team to create like these inline groupings. So you'll see in Elevate, like when you drill into like fonts or colors, like a lot of the field settings are exposed by default. And so it's just a little easier to kind of like see like a color by default versus having to click in and see what like nested settings are. So like you can more quickly see them and just start making changes and see how that affects like your content on your page. And so there's like a stronger correlation and like link between them. Whereas before with Growth Theme, like we were kind of nesting all the settings. You just had to click in and see what things were where for all of them. And like at times we were even nesting things like 5 levels deep for Growth Theme. And now we're really trying to like keep users from having to go
clicks.
Like,
two clicks in. was our max.
Was our goal. Our goal. If we need 3, maybe we can think about that. But like we're really trying to like not have users drill in too much into settings.
It was like the inception of field groups, just like
the themes module tier is not represented, but they did do so much for us. With when you see theme settings, you see the icons, and those inline field groupings are like a huge win, not just for like the developer who's building it, but also for us. You know, because like I let's say I was developing themes on Growth. I was like, I'm gonna edit some theme settings, I'm gonna change them. I'm gonna go confirm it. I gotta click. I'm clicking through, checking the setting. Like it even for me, like I had to do a ton of free clicks to have that experience. So it definitely cleans things up a ton. I mean, the fields JSON file is still gonna be 3,000 lines long. It's gonna be chunky if it's in JSON and not and not like broken up into just like a JavaScript file like maybe we'll one day eventually be able to do with React. It might actually be something that's available, but we haven't implemented it on Elevate. But we'll eventually be able to write the whole fields file in React, which is huge for like, we're talking about reusing certain fields that are just duplicates, just like I said again and again, huge wins there. But yeah, the inline field groups, I definitely want to call that out too, because that was a huge win for the visual, the visual experience of the theme settings. And our 2-click maximum, because even when you the problem still exists today on Elevate, where it's like when you start clicking in, some breadcrumbs start getting generated at the top to where you are, and it was so you could get so deep where like it had the breadcrumbs added an ellipse. You had to click the ellipse and then see what other options there were. And so people were getting lost. Like, where am I? Where even am I in these theme settings? Because like, and also like everything was when you click, so everything was nested. So like if there was a nested field group, it would create like a box to have an arrow. You click on it, and it would open like a new side panel. Okay. And so the side panels, like, I don't know if I can't quite remember now if they had like the headings like we have now, because Themes modules did some stuff for us, like to add like big bolder headings on it. So like you have the inline field groups and they have a heading that says buttons. And then I'm going to take a look at it right now because I'm just doing from here. Yeah. If you're on your theme editor, you click on fonts and then you click on headings, you can still see that you're on headings, and you can very clearly see that you came from fonts, like all the breadcrumbs. Since we only have like a 2-click maximum, you could always see the entire like tree of where you're at. So a user's understanding where they are is much clearer in this new design.
Yeah, and like kind of related to all of this, again, like I think one of the like things that often gets overlooked when like building themes is like people want to jump right into like building. Like I want to build this thing, and like I know what I need, and I can't stress enough, like I think like if we were to like segment out the amount of time that we allocated to like each like piece that went into building like the entire theme that we have now, I think like I gonna struggle putting a percentage to it, but like a significant portion of the time was just thinking about how we want people to interface with theme settings, because that has such a big ripple effect. And like, not only how we structure, how you listeners structure, like field settings, dictates how you maybe consume those variables. Like, are you using just Hubble? Are you using CSS variables? How do you pass all of that stuff through to your modules? How do you make it so that it's like extendable in the future? How do you make it so that it makes sense? How do you make it so you've got a 2-click maximum? How do you like organize these things in ways that make sense? Because to some, it's a little bit easier now, but to some degree, once people are using it, I mean, for us at least, we can't change it. Yeah. Right. We have some flexibility now, right? Because you can like alias fields. So to some degree now you can like take something that was nested and move it into like another nesting area, or put it in a different group and it'll still map. But, when we were kind of first creating Elevate like that, like kind of wasn't a thing yet. And like, like all of these, basically what I'm trying to say is that the more thought that you dedicate to putting into just theme settings alone is really going to help you shape the rest of it. And I like Brandon can attest, because I think you did the most work on field settings, but I mean, we kind of redid theme settings like at least 3 or 4 times, and like different sections, probably more than that.
Well, I mentioned the section color edition. That was a later in the game edition. Like that, we had already developed all of the theme settings, and our question was, how do we handle this problem with colors? That people are going to set backgrounds, and these text colors may not fit. What do we do? And we had to add sections. So when it came to the development side, we had to like, I had to add those settings. Then I had to like break apart like the connections to the previous ones to make it all work. And it was obviously totally worth the effort. But yeah, we now, even towards like when we're getting towards like the being wrapped up, I was about to go on paternity leave before Elevate came out. Like I have, the project was like due like a week before I was going on paternity leave. So regardless, we got it through. But yeah, we were working on these things up to the end, like making some changes and adjustments and fixes. And again, one of the unfortunate natures of working with the fields.json file is like nightmarish to edit. Like it just because like you're scrolling through. Obviously, you have an IDE, you can control find certain things, but you're doing a lot of scrolling, and you're in bracket land. You're in deep bracket land again, and so just the Elevate theme settings file is just about 4,000 lines long. Again, you're not honestly scrolling from top to bottom to find what you need, but it's big. It's a big file, and so you definitely have to keep a lot. You definitely, when you're working on, like, you're doing development on a fields file, you can get a little bit like bracket fatigue. You're scrolling through, you're changing things, like, did I change everything? You know what I mean? There's a lot of that going on. So, and a lot of checking back and forth on the page. So.
I'm gonna ask with the amount of, because this is always another thing too that and again, a lot of my frames of reference is just providers in the actual marketplace, the template marketplace. But was there how big of a debate was there for because one of the requirements, right, that we've always had and has changed over time has been like, what constitutes a theme as far as like the amount of templates, right? What for, like. And there was this was years back, but there was constant discussions around like, well, a theme should have this template, this, and that's a theme. That's the bare minimum, right? Was there any type of like, deep conversations about like what would be the adequate amount of templates and modules and sections for Elevate? Because I mean, the marketplace, you can have it's the rule of 50s, we call it 50, 50, 50. No more than 50 templates, no more than 50 modules, no more than 50 sections. Now, quite honestly, you'll never need that many. And some people have tried very unsuccessfully to make that a thing. But I get the question I have is just how did that discussion go to try to determine like what is the adequate amount of templates for Elevate module count for, to try to cover.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Again, you can't do everything, but you want to try to cover as much of the bases as you can.
Yeah, I can start us off here, and then you guys can kind of follow up, chime in. It's like, yeah, we definitely had lots of meetings where we would talk about like what modules like might be necessary with templates. We had these big, I forget that it was Figma. I don't know what resource it is, but we were looking at like, okay, cool. Here's what we have in growth, and here's what we think might be good. And we kind of like met up and like we were like giving stamps like, this one looks good, this one looks good, maybe for that one. So we kind of had this big discussion about like what would be valuable to like create the theme. I say bring over because like, look, even though we're trying to move on from growth is still like a known quantity. So like what is good in growth? Like growth wasn't just like net terrible. Like it definitely had some good ideas in there. So like what do we want to bring from that? And then like what do we want to bring in like just from the world around us that are like good ideas? I do want to, so before I pass over to BJ Szyjakowski, I do want to highlight too, like Elevate was in a very weird spot because other teams wanted to get their paws on Elevate. They're like, you got this new theme, and then like so while we had our vision about like what we want to produce, other teams were like, I want you to produce this for me in Elevate. And BJ, I think BJ has got he was one of the first guys to break something brand net new templates, right? BJ with an Elevate,
with
case studies.
So, I think what's interesting, and that's something I kind of wanted to call out too a little bit earlier. So I'm happy that you brought it up here. Was that like, Elevate wasn't technically a like, from how work flows down to various teams, Elevate wasn't like a top priority for us to focus on for the year. However, a lot of other teams had like new features that they were building out, and those were top priority. And then we kind of got Elevate to work on and started from the ground up. But largely for that first like MVP, it was not driven by like what we wanted it to look like. And we had to push back quite a bit on like what we thought was going to be good and moving too fast and like trying to really allocate our like time appropriately. And yeah, we ended up coming up, I think, with something that was really great, and we advocated for ourselves quite a bit. But yeah, largely from that MVP process, the templates were driven by like, well, this team needs this template. I think from my standpoint, like bare bones is like a blank template, a blog template, and like maybe a homepage. But I think the reality is that a lot of like, it depends if you're a marketing agency versus like a
small business
house team.
Yeah.
But I think that like a lot of marketing agencies are what I worked with, and they just want a blank template. They're just gonna like, I don't want to have to delete stuff. If I build a template or if I build a page and I want it again, I'm just gonna clone it and then like change the copy. So I think we're under a little bit of different working constraints than I think your typical agency or your typical marketplace provider. Because now, for instance, with like AI generation and stuff like that, a lot of like what the templates that we're building are based on like, oh, like this other team's building this new platform. We were going to build something that supports that, so that like Elevate naturally gets like the latest and greatest updates like as soon as it kind of can. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out like content assets team, people who are here because I feel like we built Elevate in what, like it was fast.
I mean, there was a lot. It started. The discussion started in January. Like actual, like we have now like a repo for it. It wasn't until like April or so, and then we started. It was like a summertime project. I mean, we were cranking away once. I mean, there was obviously a big lead up time, a lot of discussions, like what we're gonna do, what are we gonna do this, and now obviously we're finding out about other things that come. Honestly, 3-4 months, like we built it, but we did the actual coding of it. I mean, there was a lot of like some discussion prior to that. But I wanted to just follow on BJ because I've gotten so much of Elevate was influenced by other teams too. Like we had Sakura who was like going with our designer or UX, and these other teams were, well, I want 5 new landing pages. We didn't pay for 5 new landing pages, and those landing pages have modules you don't build yet. So he built those modules too. And then I want to say for BJ doing case studies was a brand new template type. We never had case studies before. I want you to bring this brand new template type in your brand new theme. And so that was also wild. And then the unified theme, it was brand new. So they're like, hey, we have this unified theme. Can you use it in Elevate? And we're like, yeah, sure, we'll use it in Elevate. So Elevate was in the center of a lot of teams like who had work and stuff they wanted to sort of get into the world. And like Elevate was like the vehicle to bring it home. So we were under that constraint as well. That was a big constraint and we made it happen. I mean, I guess you're right, BJ. Kudos to us. We got through it. We made it happen. And everything got delivered. I mean, unified themes out there, case studies is out there. We got podcasts out there. I mean, there's a lot going on where teams are jumping in and throwing work on, and then we got it all in. But that really kind of like, I think, and Sakura, you can let me know that maybe things would have been a little different if like we were allowed to do it our way, all the way. I don't know.
I think it's nice though, because like when you look at like what you guys have built, you can tell that like as a developer using it, you can tell a developer put thought into it. Because there's a lot of like modules and themes and stuff that I've hopped into over the years where it's like, okay, architecture wasn't the forefront when doing this, and like you can kind of see that in just like even and I told this to BJ when he first like came to HubSpot and like started working on stuff. Like I was excited because he knew the exact knowledge that we all had in the community of like the things that were frustrating, the modules that were needed, and like suddenly we're seeing
insider
gallery modules and stuff, and I'm like, this is what we've been asking for. Like it was super cool. It was nice to see. I'm sorry, Sakura, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, no worries, AJ. Yeah, we're always curious what you guys, observe in like the ecosystem. To Brandon's point, we had a lot of constraints we were working under, and like I look back and I'm like, yeah, it was like 3 to 4 really months of like real crunch time for us of like teams, internal HubSpot product teams wanting us to also create new content types with Elevate, which was something we needed to still design and build out at the time. So it was like us juggling like creating this new system, and one that we were hoping would last for the long haul. Like I think something we were trying to, avoid is Kat having to build another net new theme, from the ground up in like a year or two, and this getting dated again. Like we really wanted to future-proof a lot of these concepts that we were thinking about. And now we're kind of at this point where like Elevate is sort of that foundation for us. And like many of like other work streams that are happening now, like we're exploring how might we introduce different presets, like different styles to Elevate, maybe to create some more variety. I also don't know how much I'm supposed to be sharing. Other things.
Don't say it, Sakura.
Coming down the pipeline, but just using Elevate as sort of that launch point for us versus having to create a new theme to solve like a similar problems, I guess. So really kind of trying to work that in with it. And yeah, I don't know if it would have evolved differently had we not had the same time constraints. I think it would have been nice to, reflect if I'm just like reflecting, but like, maybe think a little more about section color. So like that is a new thing with Elevate now, where like that was kind of a little bit of a bet at the time. I remember, Brandon, it was like, it happened so late in the game where we had already started building out theme settings. And I was like, oh, and by the way, like we might want to take this into consideration because with growth theme, it was like primarily a light background theme. Like there were no, you didn't really have these dark sections with light text. And there are all these like accessibility considerations when you think about like dark section backgrounds, dark modes, fully dark modes. So we really wanted to put a lot of thought into that piece. And it was a big bet. We were like, I think we need section culling, like colors and pairings, so we can come out of the box with like, we think these dark sections look really great with, and we recommend it with this light text that we're using in our color palette. And we didn't really have a mechanism to do that like until we were working on Elevate.
No, I think that's awesome because really, and BJ, that's what you were talking about as far as like what people wanted, right? As far as like wanting to just build, right? Instead of having to go in and delete things. That was always a question that was always asked to me constantly by providers. It's like, well, how many templates should I put in this thing to make it sell? And I'm like, I'm like, you're asking me a question there that has like multiple answers and none of them could be correct. I'll be honest, and modules too, where it's like, well, maybe because I remember like I'd get stuff like, well, my theme's not selling. Maybe I'll add like 10 more modules and it'll make it sell better. And I'm like, not necessarily. I'm like, maybe, because I don't want to say no. And then all of a sudden them get a sale next week and be like, I told you. It's like, there's a lot more factors that go into it, right? Then this is kind of a multifaceted sort of thing. But but that was always a struggle too for providers as well, was having to like decide what's the perfect amount. Now I'd get some where it would barely be anything, right? And I'm like, you got to give them some options here. I'm like, this is a bit, do you know what I mean? You can't just like throw up a blank page, there has to be some default content, right? But yeah, no, I really love the fact that, there was a lot of gathering of feedback, with this as well, because a lot of people do have questions about that, and it's not an easy one to answer. But I mean, again, this is just me looking at Elevate. There's a lot there that gets solved by this theme, and it's really good to see. It really is, because again, when you review things, you get to see the best on and the absolute worst of things, and it's not a knock against any provider in particular, but there's a very vast scale, and then you see Elevate come in and solve a lot of these problems that, at least on the ecosystem quality team, like it's just been like, what, AJ, like 4 or 5 years now I've been doing this, and it's like I've seen almost every theme that's live, at various stages, right? And a lot of these stages, as they've gotten to the point where they've gotten accepted, those problems are the problems that Elevate solves now right out of the bat. So it's very, really cool to see, because it's not like discouraging to people in the marketplace, but it gives a concrete, solid example of like these problems can be solved. And it's like kind of one of those things where I start to like show people, like even in like, I'm very like big on like making looms to show providers like how to do certain things, and like creating a template page or creating a template with Elevate, and showing them certain things where like, hey, if you did it like this, it might be a little bit easier, right? Like, especially with the icons and the other things, like those are some of the things that I've literally like referenced in feedback to providers to be like, if you want to make this easy on people, you might want to follow the lead of something that really does solve a problem here, So really, really do appreciate all of the work all of you have done, and all the other teams too. Like you said, there's there's a lot of teams that put effort into this as well. So it's one of those things where I can't thank all of you enough, because it's made my life easier and you didn't even know it. So it's
nice.
It's just one of those things for sure.
And like, I think like to kind of pseudo answer that question of like, well, what does it take to like make a good theme? And like, I think the reality is that like there's no shortcut to it, right? Like the answer isn't more modules or more templates. Like this perfect blend of like, marketing design, like how is like the interface inside of HubSpot easy to use and understand? Do marketers have access to the theme settings that they need? Are those theme settings connected in an intuitive way to the rest of the theme, including modules, templates, etc.? Like, do you have like comprehensive HubSpot functionality, or at least to the market that you're trying to like build a theme for? And like from a technical standpoint, like is your markup, what you're rendering on the page, like is it up to like modern times? Like is it accessible? Like Elevate has really great page speed out of, or like really great performance, page speed out of the gates. It has like really great accessibility. Like we put a lot of time into like making sure that like, you know, menus are like keyboard navigable, like screen reader friendly, making sure that, you know, the like page translations stuff is like also accessible. And like, you know, we put a lot of time into not just like building modules that are functional, but making sure that the modules that are included are like comprehensive. So I think it's like, you know, this golden storm where like, you know, I get that in the wild, not everybody has, you know, 3 months to build a theme and can consistently be iterating on it the entire time. But I think that, you know, that is what makes a good theme, is, you know, making sure that all of your bells and whistles are covered. So I think if you don't have like the amount of time to build this crazy big thing, like tone it back, make something small, functional, and like build on it, as opposed to, you know, trying to get everything that covers every use case out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. I think that's very, very true. And you do see like, even especially in the template marketplace, you do see the providers that are doing that do have like a really, really great product when they take that approach, right? It's just like, it starts to scale, and it starts to, with each iteration, just add more to it, instead of just trying to throw everything together and try to solve every problem all at once with as much as it possibly can. It's, yeah, there's you can definitely tell the difference between the two. So no, I do appreciate that. We're running up against time. Was there any other thing that you can think of that you want to kind of like shout out with regards to Elevate, or?
Let's see.
Elevate's dope. Use it.
It does. I mean, it passes the template marketplace review. So I mean, that carries some weight. That's
Nice.
bragging rights. That's bragging rights.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you know, a good point to leave it on, at least from our side, is like Elevate is not going anywhere. Like I like Sakura saying, we can't like obviously give too many details about all the different like sort of like works in progress we shouldn't have gone, but like 2026 is going to see new more stuff come through Elevate. Elevate is definitely going to continue to serve as the vehicle that we made it into, and I think it's still going to get a lot of traction. Again, it's like I mentioned before, it already is getting a lot of that, and like where Elevate's going nowhere, it's going to continue to be developed on, enhanced, and sort of continue to be a sort of like a vehicle for other teams to sort of like, hey, I have these ideas, I want this idea. Can Elevate serve? And yeah, Elevate can serve, and it will.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank all of you for taking the time. It's literally when this first came out, when Elevate first came out, and I was made, you know, we were aware of it. This was one of the things that myself and Dennis and AJ all kind of got together and said, we really want to talk with everyone involved in this, because there was so much of it that we saw, whether it was just me looking at it or us just kind of like, hey, did you see what came out? Did you see this? Yeah, no, did you see what they did here? Because I know I was bugging AJ about it all the time, because I was like, can we like make developers in the marketplace do this? Like, can we, like, you know what I mean? There was just certain things where I was just like, this to me, that it would make my life easier, but you know, selfishly, but yeah, no, just a huge thank you, because like the time and the effort and the kind of I wasn't there, but like the conversations shows it absolutely shows in the work that's there and the theme that's been created. So huge thank you to all of you, because it really it gets to be a nice shining example to show to providers, you know, just kind of the direction that they should be kind of going in when creating a theme just in general. So a huge thank you to all of you, really.
Yeah. A huge thank you to you guys for having us on the podcast. Happy to chat, Elevate, or anything else at any time. So just
yeah,
really
no, I mean, like
opportunity.
BJ's already been on, so like if either one of you want, like this is what we love to do, right? We talk design theory, you know, anything, like all that stuff. Like we love to do the individual ones, we like to do the group ones like this. Like we are really trying to expand these conversations, because they're huge, and like a lot of the developer community loves listening to this. AJ just told me that somebody listens to it while they're walking their dog, like every day. Like every time we have a new episode, this is like what they do to take a break. And I'm just like, listening to me is taking a break. I was like, I feel bad for you. I'm like, that's horrible. But but no, it's we love doing this, and this is just kind of like, because it's important for people to know this stuff, really. I mean, like, yeah, And again, anyone listening and watching, I encourage you, like, if you've got the HubSpot CMS already, you should like be in there creating a page right now from that theme. Like it's there. You don't have to do 2 clicks, right? It's 2 clicks to do that, actually. So I mean, like, we're already there. So do that right away, and because you will not be disappointed in that. So, but once again, I want to thank all of you for coming on. It was fantastic, and I'm glad that we got to hear like some of the great things that Elevate can do, because once somebody gets their hands on this, I think it's going to be probably, I'm going to put some percentages up there, a good 85 or more %. Their solution it's there. Like right out of the box. What they need is there. Right. So it's just one of those things where we're really grateful for all of you. So thank you.
You got it.
We were going to end it with like playing Elevation by U2, but I think we would get kicked off with just about everywhere we posted it. So we'll probably just have to end it kind of boring and bland. I really wanted to find a song that we could go out to, but I think everything would pretty much just get us like knocked off of YouTube like instantly. So, but it is what it is. So thank you again for everyone listening. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to this on Spotify, please follow, please subscribe, tell all of your friends, because without listeners like the community and other HubSpotters, I don't think Steve would have us doing this much longer. But yeah, so thank you again, and we'll see everyone next time.